when I starting thinking about the way of working, actually first I don't know what is Scrum. I don't have any certification, and I don't know any framework actually. I just change how I thinking, and then I read in the Google what is Agile. I just get my certification actually last year when I joined Ekipa.
Right. Great.
That's it. So yes, training is important, certificate is important, but the most important thing is how you think differently.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, and welcome to this podcast episode. I am Hugo Messer. I'm the founder of Ekipa, and I've been doing a lot of stuff both on a practitioner level with Agile and also in a leadership context. I'm currently living in Indonesia, so I'm helping a lot of Indonesian companies to make a transformation to become an Agile organization. And today I'm going to have a conversation with one of my colleagues, Angga, who has been doing Agile in some of the banks, and he joined us about a year ago. So I want to discuss a lot about the influence or the role of frameworks in an Agile transformation, or the role that frameworks should or should not play. So this is what we're going to converse about today. I want to give it to Angga to introduce himself.
Okay, thank you, Hugo. I'm Angga, and now I'm working for more than 1 year in Ekipa as a collaborator, as facilitator. Sometimes I don't like to be called as a coach, but yeah, I'm an Agile coach, and actually I'm 15 years in my career in the most of it in the banking.
Yeah, and lately we've been discussing about the role of frameworks, and I think something clicked for you a couple of weeks ago because I was doing a sharing session with the rest of the team. And one of the things that I started discussing is that if we look at an Agile transformation, it usually starts with the framework. So people start getting into Scrum, Agile fundamentals, Kanban. My personal view is that from there, we go into developing Agile habits, which is much more about behavior. So it's less about following steps in a framework like Scrum or playing a certain role or doing a certain ceremony, and much more about developing habits like openness, decision-making, giving feedback to each other. And then once you get those two ingredients, so the starting Agile as well as the Agile habits in place with your people, from there you can create an Agile organization. And it takes a long time. So I wanted to ask you, what is your personal view on this? Because you've been in a bank in Danamon for about 10 years, and you joined us about a year ago. You've been in Danamon when they started Agile. So I would like to hear from you. What are what's your personal transformation related to what I've just shared?
Okay, thank you. Framework, if we say that it's important, yes, in some certain thing it's important, but it's not everything. I think most of it that we're talking about Agile transformation, that the pitfall is we starting from the framework. Let's say we doing Kanban, we doing Scrum, without knowing what we are gonna do. So it's in my experience for doing this. I don't know whether this is a transformation for the bank or not, but it's just when I start changing my thinking how to support my user.
Yeah.
So I'm in the IT division for a long time. Even though in the previous banking I'm in the IT, and most of it in the IT person that we always sitting in our desk, and which is not wrong, because for that kind of moment, and we are doing some code, we are doing some analyze, we are doing some design. But when we are starting working, mostly in the formal meeting that we user call us, and then hey, we want to make this some project, and then okay, just make some requirement documents, and then the requirement documents coming to us, and before we start coding, we see the queuing of our project, and then we start reading the requirement document, and then we see, oh, this is not right. We coming back to the user. It can back and forth, and at the moment, and we can do it almost a month, and we're not doing anything. We're not doing some code at the same time, and then we change how we work actually. So in my past bank, my leader said, IT actually is an enabler. You're not a tailor. So you are an enabler. What is enabler? You help your user, because sometimes user know how to make something, but sometimes they don't know how to put it in some document. So that's your part to help your user.
Yeah.
So
what's the difference with a tailor then?
Tailor just you just get the design, you get just the requirement, and then you see if they saying A, then you will make A. If you see the A is not wrong, you can hey user, this is not right.
Yeah.
We should be put a B, even though the A is the right one.
Yeah.
So that's
what you're saying is that the role of Agile is to make the conversation better between the user and the IT guy.
yeah. I think that's the most important thing to doing some agile stuff
Yeah.
is collaborating.
Yeah, collaboration. Yeah.
So you're not just sitting in your desk. You go up from your desk.
And what you started out saying is that it's a pitfall for people to start with a framework.
Because at the moment that okay, let's doing agile and let's use Scrum, the most popular framework, which that's a good framework, but there is no collaboration, there is no conversation, there is no how we can think as a customers. So there's moment in 2016 when I'm in that bank that I'm supporting one of the business units that's the very interesting moment when we start doing together to create some product that we share our idea, not using document, just a board, we just writing something. And the good thing that it's no I remember again what I'm doing, that we go out from the bank, we ask the customer.
Yeah.
So we go to some one of the biggest market in Jakarta is in Tanah Abang. You said we talk with
you start talking to people
with the seller.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that if you use Scrum, for example, that type of conversation isn't there. Although in Scrum we've got a product owner who has that role, so he has to speak with the stakeholders, that could be those clients in Tanah Abang, and communicate this in the right way to the development.
Actually, when we're talking about Scrum, it should be there, but because what we are thinking about framework, that kind of thing is not there yet. If you're not to understand, so when we start talking to the customer, actually we are developing the requirement for what the customer really need, and then we go back to the bank. We just sitting in some room, we writing something in the board. I just take a picture on it, and I talk with the development team, and this is what we're gonna do, and we start developing it. Document still there, but after it cannot it can after we develop something, and something that you should remember, that we're not using any agile framework actually at the time. We're still in the waterfall process. But in 2016 and 17, we can doing some more than 50 integration for the external party.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel the benefit more.
So maybe this is a question where you feel there's some sensitivity. What I'm thinking is that in Danamon, they started around 4 or 5 years ago, and what you've described is where it started. So they tried to implement Scrum on the IT level. So a lot of they scaled quite fast. So they started training people, they started running all the projects in Scrum, and for some reason it got stuck somewhere, and they went back to a certain extent to waterfall. Now you've got a lot of experience outside. We work for some other banks together. You're working for mostly financial companies, but not only in IT. So what are some things that you see which could help to avoid that pitfall of starting with Scrum, scaling up fast, and then getting stuck?
Change how we think. Change how we think. Change that everything need to have a purpose. So we need to have some fire on it. So maybe you're not really cross-function team. Maybe you're not a squad or a tribes. You're still in the division. In my case, we're still in the division. We're not saying that, well, we are cross-function team. No, I'm still reporting in my manager, my business is doing it. But how we work, it's different.
Yeah.
You can have a squad, but you can still doing some silo, right?
Yeah.
So that's the important. And then start conversation. Get out our fit to your user, your customer. Just don't sitting here waiting for documents, waiting for job, but we go out. We see what else that can we do.
Yeah, so this comes to the point that I mentioned in the beginning. It's a lot about the behavior.
Sure.
What we're currently experiencing in one of the other clients, one of the banks that we're helping, is a lot of people have this mindset of BAU. For me, it was before I got into Indonesia, that whole word BAU was not a thing, but I hear it everywhere. So it means business as usual. People are hired for a certain role, and they have a set of responsibilities. They get some KPIs, and they think that this is the thing that I need to do. So they go about it in a sort of systematic or robotic way. Whereas what we're saying in Agile is we want people to get out of the comfort zone, to think out of the box, to do things in a different way,
Yeah.
and the people need to move to the work or the outcomes that they need to create. So how do you see that?
Yeah. Back again, in my case, I still have a BAU, I still have a KPI. We don't even implementing some OKR, but
Right.
but at the end is the purpose and the outcome, right? So for me, that's why when we're talking about framework, if everything okay, now we start Agile implementing Kanban or Scrum and then OKR, but they don't have a right set at what we should doing in here. Even when we're talking about BAU, let's say we're talking about BAU, there is some Agile stuff that we can implementing, right? It's not about how to make a product, but how to surface how we can put priority in our job. We have a Kanban method in there. It's a BAU things, right? That we can do it.
Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
In Kanban way of working, how we limited our tasks actually, and it will be more focused
Yeah.
to complete faster.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so let's zoom in on those behaviors. So since because Dahlman is a big bank, very traditional, it's siloed, there's a lot of systems in place. You join Ekipa. Ekipa is a small company, and we're trying to innovate ourselves, right? So we try to practice what we preach. So most of what we're trying to do, the Ekipa reinvented, which defines the principles and the behaviors that we expect of our team, come from the team organization, from Philip Lalou. So what are some things that stood out for you once you joined, and what are some of the behaviors that you think we stimulate in our own team that could benefit our clients or anybody who wants to go on an Agile journey? So to make those Agile behaviors a bit more specific.
yeah, for me, first is transparency.
Transparency.
It should be there. Even in when I joined first in Ekipa, there is some moment that I quite shocked. Okay, so the
Right.
transparency is not about to transparent your job, but everything. Even you can see your friend's salary on there.
Yeah.
But the good thing is that we are not fighting. So, why you have the big salary? Why you not?
Well, we had some
Discussion, but it's
right.
quite different if you're in the place that you cannot know something. Even there's a bank that you cannot know which grade are you.
Yeah.
I
Are you suggesting that if you work in a large bank or any large organization, we just open up the finance and all the salaries so we can see everything?
don't see there's any burden for that.
Right.
And I don't know because for me, transparency is everything.
Yeah.
And the second one, it's a feedback culture. It's very important.
Okay.
You like in Ekipa, we are implementing a try to become as still as possible, right? I
Yeah.
don't know this is the right word or not. As still organization as possible.
Yeah.
So we don't say you are my boss. We don't say you are my manager. We just know Hugo and Angga as a coworkers. So I can give you feedback anytime I want, and we
Yeah.
have a one-on-one coaching in proper way. And then feedback is very important for us,
Yeah.
right? And everything in Ekipa is based on the idea of for all the Ekipians.
So let's zoom in on that because this feedback culture, right? So one of the things I've noticed in a couple of leaders that I'm coaching is that they have this sense of, as a leader, I cannot say no to my boss, but I can also not say no to my team if they require me to join. Yesterday we had this conversation, right?
Yeah,
So it's about, I feel as a leader, I want to save time. I want to focus on the most impactful activities.
Yeah.
At the same time, my teams are asking me to join because I have if I'm there, they feel more comfortable. So how do you deal with that? And how do you trigger people to get through that and still say no in an honest and friendly way?
Yeah, for me it's back from the leader itself. Let's say in the traditional way, before we are implementing peer review.
Yeah.
That the one that review is your boss actually.
Yeah.
And your boss is reviewed by his boss. So everything came up from your boss. You should listen because if you're not doing, then you're bad. If you have a bad KPI, then you will not get increase. You will not get a bonus. But now we are introduced by the peer review, right? Now peer review is everywhere, not in Ekipa only, but some company already doing it because for me it's more fair enough because I work more often with my peer than my boss actually. So that's the first. And then as a leaders actually, I think this is something about Agile why sometimes it's quite hard to implement in the big organization. If we all know in Agile sometimes the role of manager is not there anymore, right?
Yeah.
Even though let's say you are a manager, but we are the same. So people maybe tend to don't want to lose some power.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the challenge, right? Because yesterday we had this conversation, and then people say, "But this is not the culture in our bank. It's ingrained, and those leaders are not that easy to change." And in order to change it, they have to stand up to that boss, right? They have to start making him aware that if we want to become an agile organization where feedback flows around, you as a director need to change your behavior. But how do you do that if you're sensitive to not, you don't want to hurt the feelings of somebody else, especially your boss?
Yeah, yeah. That's why how actually we are in Indonesia. We know how to talk well, right? But
Especially you.
yeah, especially me. And then, but if you become a leader, you should become the leader that first you have to trust with your team. That's the first, and that's the hardest part actually. That's the hardest part, how you can trust with your team. And then I learned again that how to trust with your team. It doesn't mean that okay, let's organize, but you don't know how. For me, trust with your team is I believe that you can do it, but let's be doing some inspect regularly. Another framework actually, right?
Yeah.
Without telling it's a scrum.
Yeah.
Right? And then in that inspect regularly, we doing some retrospective. Another framework that introduced by Scrum, but we're not saying it's a Scrum.
Yeah.
So how we can retrospective that we talk with our leaders actually is like
So
friends.
you could create a platform
Like a
where they
platform,
join, and
actually.
in the group we start giving this feedback.
But actually, who go for what I see, it's back again from the culture. Maybe it's not the culture of the company itself, maybe the culture of the most of the Asian people, right? That we let's say if we in the Japanese that we need to respect the older people, which is it's not a bad culture, but if I'm being that position that I also have a kid, I want my kids to respect me as parents. But
Me too, by the way.
but me as a parent, how I can make some ecosystem in my house that my kids should give a feedback to me.
Yeah, so they could still respect you. And
They
give
still
the
respect
feedback.
me, but my kids still give me respect. There's one thing, maybe this I don't know this is agile things or not, but my kids often say that, "Hey, Papa, why until night you still working?"
That's good feedback.
That's a good feedback. They just saying it, and then I heard, oh yeah, I often working before even in the bank. Sometimes I work come home at 11 p.m., 11:30, and then why you always go out with your friends? My kids saying that. It's a feedback, right? But they saying in the polite way, and they respect me as a parent. So that's how leaders should do, right?
Yeah. Okay, so it's about making people aware that respect and feedback are two separate concepts, and we can combine those two by giving feedback in a friendly way.
In a friendly way. Yeah.
We had this concept of the 4 A's from Netflix, which I think is very helpful in this. So we have 4 A's that guide you to receive and give feedback.
Yep.
For those of you who are interested, you can Google 4A of Netflix, and there's I think it's aim, assist, and then accept.
Yeah, forgot that one. I read it and I forgot that one. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the feedback part. What other behaviors do you think are surprising to you or eye-opening of what we're creating in Ekipa that other people can actually benefit from?
We are part of the big organization actually. Even in Ekipa, we only have 20 people now. We have the same purpose. So the ecosystem that we made in the Ekipa, that each person in Ekipa you can bring some value, whatever it is, because the leaders, we have a leaders in Ekipa, right? We have a leaders that we never know this is not right to do. You cannot doing this. We not never saying that. Just doing it. You just doing it, and if it's not working, then we retrospective as easy as that. Maybe some of the example that we made in Ekipa about our product, Ekipa Plus. You know how much we want to have some product since last year when I joined Ekipa, but we never have a right product owner. We never we always end with the, let's say, some disaster, and then I give you feedback, right? I give you feedback that you say you really want this product, be a product owner.
So now I have to be product owner.
And then you make it, and then we think again. I cannot work alone. So how we should do? Okay, we hire some people. Actually,
so what you're getting at is that I get 2 points from it. One is the sense of ownership, which again is a behavior.
Sure.
And the second one is to work in iteration. So to try something without overthinking, just get it out, get feedback, and learn from that. That's the two behaviors you're describing.
And that's also what happened in the bank when I'm doing for the first time of actually my my previous leaders before when we starting doing some virtual account in Tanah Abang, the transactions is only 7 or 8. So it is some our piloting project, but the transaction only, I forgot, it's below 20.
Yeah.
But we not stop. We learn how we can make it better, and let's go out, find the right partner until we get one of the biggest unicorn in Indonesia.
Right.
And then the transaction is very huge in daily until our system is getting we need to do some tuning again, and we still doing because that's the purpose, right? Actually, when we get the result of the outcome, it's increasing my moral how to make it better, because we interact.
Because so you get you take and get ownership. You try stuff,
Yeah.
and if it works, you grow as a person.
Yeah.
Because you see that something valuable comes from your activities.
That's why it's different between the enabler and the tailor.
Right.
You can become a tailor, you can make some shoes, but it's not your shoes.
Right.
But if you enabler, you are joining the team how to make it. You are part of that product, of how you make the right program.
Yeah. Okay, before we get to a closure, what I would like to ask you is how do you see the difference between the things you described in terms of framework and agility and behavior in an IT context, versus, because you were in the IT role in Danone for 10 years, and now in some of the transformations we're doing stuff which has nothing to do with IT, which is much more about getting to an agile organization. So what are some of the things that you believe are different, and especially relating to the role of frameworks and agile behaviors?
That's why don't start with the framework.
Don't start that.
Don't start with the framework.
You have, especially if you're not in an IT environment.
Even in IT, we have IT. It's a lot of IT development, production, infrastructure, which IT.
Yeah.
So we need to know the context first.
Yeah.
What they're really trying to achieve.
Yeah.
If you're in product base, and then you make a product. If you're in the production team, you want to make it the incremental as soon as possible. If you're in the infrastructure, so the framework will be different, or maybe you can find your own framework within in the Agile.
So the challenge I see there is, because when I got to Indonesia, I started sharing a lot of those thoughts, right? It's in a more abstract way. The question I kept getting is, tell me how to do it. So it's great material. It's great because if you talk about Agile in a more abstract way, it becomes a bit vague.
Sure.
And then people start asking, okay, tell me step 1, 2, 3, so that I know what to do. So how do you find the balance there?
Should be practical and the easy one to open all the tasks. Let's say if we coming to the some company and it's an IT, we want to know what happened in there. You should put everything. So there's a reason where there's a board and there's a column, right? So you can put everything. You can see the value stream, and then you learn from that, and then we know how to do it. I think Agile is about how we can move faster in the right way, right? And how to do it, we need to have a regular inspect and regular retrospective, because we want to do incrementally and by not doing some long-term planning. So how to do it, you have to see it first. So that's the practical.
What I hear you say is that, for example, people could start by doing a training in Scrum, but then don't religiously follow the Scrum framework, take elements out of it and see what works. You could start by religiously following the Scrum framework, but be open to changing even the way you go about this, right? So take elements like visualization, the cadence, the roles.
That's the thing, I think. Don't become religiously with the framework.
Yeah.
It's not religion, actually. Framework actually is just a way how you to get there.
Yeah.
So in my perspective, maybe for all the audience here, learn all the framework. You learn Scrum is not wrong. Scrum is I love how they're doing it. Learn Kanban, even safe. If we talk a lot about safe, learn why there is safe, why there is Lex, why there's Nexus, Scrum at scale. Now we heard something about fast Agile. Learn what is Lean, what is Kanban, what is Scrumban, what is Scrum with Kanban, and so we have lots of information in there. But actually, what we gonna do is how to supporting the organization to become more agile.
And yourself, I think, because it's also about your own transformation. It's about changing the way you behave and think about work, about life, about whatever you're doing.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Angga. I think it was a good conversation. So I think we're aligned, of course, because we're in the same team. So we're just trying to confirm our ideas, and we have a lot of conversations about it. But for me, I think what stood out is that you start with Agile by exploring what's there, be it a framework or be it something else. Then you try to develop Agile behaviors, and you need to make those specific, right? You need to just define, if I'm talking about Agile behaviors, what are those? Like, is it feedback? And if it's feedback, then what type of feedback do we expect from each other? So you need to make those behaviors specific, maybe even measurable. You could put it in a scorecard or a function description so that people know what's expected. And then with those two things in place, so the way of working, the behaviors that you expect, you can eventually become an agile organization. That's
yeah. Maybe before you close, I just want to give some disclaimer. When I starting thinking about agile way of working, actually first I don't know what it is Scrum. I don't have any certification, and I don't know any framework actually. I just change how I thinking, and then I read in the Google what is agile. I just get my certification actually last year when I joined Ekipa.
Right. Great.
That's it. So yes, training is important, certificate is important, but the most important thing is how you think differently.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Change the mindset.
Just the mindset.
Okay, so thanks for the interview, and I think we'll discuss more after this.
Sure.
Thanks for listening to the podcast this time. I hope you enjoyed it. And of course, there's many ways to engage with us. So most of the communication that we do around our insights, around events that we're organizing or announcing podcasts like this, we bring that into our LinkedIn page. So if you want to stay tuned, follow us on LinkedIn. The other alternative, the more modern alternative, is Instagram. I'm not a very big user of Instagram, although I do have some account there, but follow the Ekipa Instagram account, where we regularly post insights and also announcements. And if you want to have any conversation with me or with one of my colleagues about Agile, about innovation, about how to stimulate entrepreneurship, about venture building, about anything that's related to Agile, please reach out. Feel free to contact me. You can always add me on LinkedIn because I'm very open, so I accept any invite. And I think all my contact details are even in my public page. So feel free to reach out and happy to hear from you. See you in the next episode.